Hey, well, welcome back. As promised, we wanted to provide you a little bit more insight and detail into some of what we presented when we first met on March 10th. So let me dive right into this and let me share my screen. Hopefully, this will provide you a little bit more detail and insight about how you can take some of what we discussed and put it into play to accelerate your ability to achieve what matters most to you, your team, or your organization. One of the key concepts we talked about when we were last together was that we're in this age of disruption. We call it a brawl with no rules, future work, whatever you might want to call it. Things have changed dramatically, and we all need to be resilient, be agile. We need to adapt and embrace change, and we must be able to consistently build and develop new skills and competencies that will help us achieve what matters most in this new world of work, which will continue to be more and more turbulent as we move forward. We talked about how important it is to be very cognizant and very much aware of the experiences we're creating for those around us. Every shrug of your shoulder, every blink of your eye, everything you do, everything you say is sending messages to everybody around you. And the key and the essence of leadership is really that your actions must mirror and be consistent and congruent with your words. If there's an inconsistency there, it creates a lack of credibility. And the likelihood that you'll have anybody follow you or want to give more than is necessary to help you achieve what matters most would be very, very minimal. Once you lose credibility, it's almost impossible to regain it. All of these actions and experiences that we create for others is developing what we call your brand. It's your default brand. It's just the way that others see you. So it's really interesting. One thing I could challenge all of you to do, we do this in some pre-work with some of the work that we do with clients, is we ask folks in an anonymous manner to gather from 10 people 5 words that come to their mind when they think about you. So you're gathering 5 words from 10 people. You accumulate 50 total words. And the words that you collect, the common themes that come back, that's kind of your brand. That's how people see you. Some of us can collect those words and feel pretty good about the feedback that we get. And it may be exactly the brand that you want to have. Others, you may look at the collection of words and there may be some things in there that you're not real pleased with. But we did talk about how we can shift the way people see you based upon creating new experiences. And we'll talk a little bit more about that again today. That acronym, some of you may be familiar with DWSWD, it simply means do what you say you will do. Again, the essence of leadership, follow through on commitments, do what you say you will do, but it applies to every single person at every level of an organization, especially if you're looking to strengthen and bolster your brand and the way others see you. One thing I would encourage you to do is consider that no matter what work you're doing, are you producing work worth paying for? Is it work that if you weren't there to do it, somebody would be willing to outsource and go out and buy it and pay for that type of service? Or are you simply producing mediocre successes? Because either path you choose has an impact on your brand. So think over the past month or two about the projects or any work that you've been involved with and go back and rate it on these simple qualities. What was the impact, the wow factor, when you shared it with your internal or external clients or colleagues? Think about the beauty and elegance. Was it mediocre or was it something that just blew people away? What was the impact it had on you, your team, your organization, your client, your partner, whoever you were doing the work for? And finally, did it produce ongoing raving fans, loyal customers, both internally and externally? All of this has to do with strengthening and bolstering our brand. When we consider how folks contribute in any given organization, typically the one that gets most focus is that one. It's all about logic and smarts. But there are more than one way that individuals can contribute to your organization, your team, or your department. There's folks that are great with words and linguistics. We need to look for that. We need that diversity. Folks have the ability to have the big picture, are able to think spatially and look into the future and help us in that manner. Some are very adept with music. We also have the kinesthetic. Folks learn through action and actually putting things into play. Interpersonal skills, people skills, very necessary in this new world of work, future work, the age of disruption. And finally, intrapersonal. There are some of us that like to think and have moments of self-reflection. So there's a variety of different ways that people can contribute to an organization. And because somebody may not necessarily have the same skill set as you does not mean that that cannot contribute. We need to work with all of these different styles, and we need to really integrate all of this into helping us become more effective as a team or as an organization. One thing that I'd like for all of us to consider, and I've shared this with my children since they were tiny, but we are all a depreciating asset. No matter what you do or who you are, we're all depreciating assets. And we have to invest in ourselves, in our teams, in our organizations. We have to have a renewal plan of sorts, an investment plan, and it must be formal. You know, put it together. Don't make it overwhelming, but what are you doing to develop and refine and build new skills, develop new competencies to demonstrate you bring value to your organization or your team? And you have to schedule routine, personal, what I call brand you audits. You know, 6 months from now, are you doing the same old thing, or have you actually moved to a better place? Are you bringing more to your team or your department or your organization or to your clients? There's a difference, and we talked about leadership and management in the last session we were together. Both are absolutely necessary and important within any organization, but organizations that devote a 75% focus on leadership are the ones that consistently achieve and exceed their desired results. You need both, but as a leader, there are things that leaders do that are just a bit different than managers. Leaders make things happen that otherwise would not have happened. They have the picture. They're looking both internally and externally at dangers, at possibilities, at opportunities. They're making sure that we're moving in a direction that will sustain us over time. Managers make things happen that are supposed to happen. That's the job of a manager. You know, the root word of manager is manos. It's to handle. It's to make things happen that are supposed to happen. Leadership is about moving forward. Management is about control, making sure that everything's moving smoothly. Management is typically an assignment. Leadership is a choice. And we brought this up last time. You do not need to have a title or positional authority to display exemplary leadership practices. Any of us can display exemplary leadership practices. And in this new world of work, we are the only ones that will lead our careers, our lives, and our destiny. Managers often focus on tasks and activities where leaders create a focus on the big picture and the vision of the future. What's possible? How's it going to make our lives better? How's it going to help my job become better for me? How's it going to help the team? How's it going to help the organization? How's it going to help my family? Leaders can ensure that they paint such a crystal clear picture of that future that individuals will voluntarily jump in and say, I want to make that a reality. How can I make that a reality? But they need to see the why behind the what and what's in it for them. I had the privilege to work with Jim Kouzes, who was part of our team at Tom Peters' company, and Jim and his partner, Barry Posner, did 30 years of research into exemplary leadership practices. What are the practices that great leaders display that gets others to voluntarily choose to follow them? And over 100,000 case studies, when they looked at the data, they were able to kind of boil it down into what they call the 5 practices of exemplary leadership. The first one is model the way. And if you'll remember, in the first time we were together, we had the video clip of the hand clap exercise. You know, have you ever worked for a leader who said one thing and acted inconsistently with that? It's about modeling the way. Do what you say you will do. Be consistent and congruent with the message. The audio must match the video. The second is inspiring a shared vision. So we just talked about that. What is the future that you're painting in the minds of those that you lead? How are you inspiring them to voluntarily tap into their discretionary performance area so that they go above and beyond what is required in order to help you achieve what is necessary? Challenge the process. Oftentimes we hear from new people when they come into an organization, and they may ask, why are we doing things a certain way? And then we look at it and we actually determine and find out that there's better ways to do what we're already doing. Don't get into the rut that just because you've done it the same way for 20 years, that it's the optimal way to do things. Challenge the process. Enable others to act. Remove barriers and obstacles. Equip people with the appropriate skills and talents so that they can do what's necessary to accelerate your ability to achieve what matters most. And encourage the heart. People need to know that they're appreciated. You know, it's the deepest craving a human being has, is the need to feel appreciated. And if you'll remember, here's 3 of the examples of companies that were kind of complacent, were top performers back in the day when they were doing quite well. But because of the 6 factors that we introduced last time, they either no longer exist or just clinging on to life right now. But these all apply to individuals as well. Everything, all these 6 bullets that are up there right now, they apply to you as an individual. Don't be short-term focused. Don't only look inwardly within your organization or within yourself, but look at external factors as well. What's happening around you? Where's the opportunity? Where's the possibility? What are the hazards? You know, don't be complacent. Don't believe just because you've reached a certain degree in your education that you're good to go for the rest of your career. Make sure that you're spending more time focused on leading and all the aspects that go along with leading: inspiring, motivating, strategizing, uplifting, all of the things that leaders do. Spend 75% of your time there versus 75% of your time managing. Don't be reactive, be proactive, look for all those opportunities, and don't be averse to taking calculated risks. We talked about disruption the last time we were together. So let's give you a few more examples of disruption and what it's looking like right now. I mean, this is existing right now. There are lights out warehouses that are hundreds of acres in size that are completely robotic. There's not a human being in the entire facility. There's talk now about the ability to actually be able to touch through your digital devices. Right now, there are robots delivering to our homes and to our businesses. Think about this. Would we even have thought about this 20, 30 years ago? There are kitchens with no chefs in them. There are robots designing and building homes and office buildings. Think of the impact that has throughout that supply chain. Architects, contractors, construction workers, truckers. The list goes on and on and on. How will that impact all of us? There are actually flying cars right now. You know, if you're as old as me, you might remember the old show, The Jetsons, where George used to fly to work in his little, actually, it didn't look too much different than what we're seeing here on the screen. We have flying cars right now, and they're becoming more and more refined to the ability to the extent where they will be commonplace in the not too distant future. We have cell-sized microchips, millibots, that are being implanted inside our bodies to heal our bodies from the inside out. And artificial intelligence, so lifelike and having the ability to learn that it's very difficult to tell the difference between the AI and an actual human being. All of these changes are taking place. Think of the impact this could have upon us individually, as teams, and as departments. Are you producing work worth paying for? We introduced the 7-sided pincer movement when we were last together. These are the 7 elements that are coming together, coalescing, and they're looking to replace your job. They're looking to reinvent your industry, and they're looking to displace your department. And we talked about the kryptonite of what it will take to ward that 7-sided pincer movement off. And we'll get into that a little bit more. In this new world of work, it's been determined that these are some of the skills that are kind of on the decline, not quite as important as they used to be. And if you look at that list there, most of that stuff, we've all over the past years have been to workshops and training sessions and talked about and taught about how important all of these are. They're no longer going to be as important due to the 7-sided pincer movement as they were in years past. The skills that are on the incline, or that will prevail over time, are these. And if you look at the list that's up there, Everything up there is all about people skills. How good are your people skills? Where do you need to bump up your skill set or develop better competencies? That's what it will take for individuals, for teams, for departments and organizations to thrive in the future. We've put together what we call our New World of Work Survival Kit, what it's really going to take and some things you need to be thinking about as we move into future work. First is mastery. Be really, really good at something. Don't try to be all things to all people. Focus on what is your core set, your competencies. You know that this is what you're truly good at, and make sure that's your focus. Manage to your legacy. Everything you do should be memorable, braggable, have a wow factor, create loyalty. Have a unique selling proposition. As an individual, you should have one. As a team, as a department, and as an organization. How can you get your remarkable and unique point of view across in 10 words or less so that people truly understand what makes you different in this sea of sameness? Have a networking obsession, vertical and horizontally, both within your organization, externally as well, internally and externally. Have a networking obsession, entrepreneurial instinct, constantly looking for opportunities, possibilities that will allow us to really propel ourselves into a better position than where we are today. We all need to view ourselves as the CEO of You Inc. You know, you're the only one that's going to lead your life, your career, and destiny. I'm sorry to continue to him and haw on that, but that is the absolute truth. You're the only one that will lead your life, your career, and your destiny. You need to embrace the leadership competencies. You need to be considering all of this daily. Be a master of improv. Don't stick to just what's in your job description. Be willing to go above and beyond, to take on multiple roles, develop new skills, understand every aspect of the business. Have a sense of humor. You know, if you screw things up, learn from it and move on. Don't dwell on it. Don't play the blame game and stay, drowning, as we talked about last time, below the water. You know, you will never accomplish anything important, significant, or meaningful while we're playing the blame game. It might be fun and therapeutic to go down there for a few minutes, but we need to make sure that we absolutely understand when we're there and pull ourselves up above the water so we can move forward and achieve what matters most. Be comfortable in your own skin. Everybody's different. Everybody has something to offer. Just because you're not the same as somebody else that works with you, don't worry about it. We all have something truly amazing to offer to an organization. I don't care who you are, you have something to offer. Value that distinctiveness. We all need to have an intense and unrelenting appetite for technology. Things are changing so quickly. Technology becomes obsolete, and then we have to learn something new. It's just simply not an option. You need to embrace that. Embrace marketing. You have to become the chief storytelling officer of your career and your life. I mean, of course, be humble. Don't be braggadocious, but you need to let folks know what you are capable of doing. What's your uniqueness? What is it about you that makes you different from all of the other options that exist? Be obsessed with renewal. We continue to talk about this. Learn every single day. You need to be chief learning officer of your life. Learn something new every day, even if it's something tiny, if it's a new trick with Excel and spreadsheets. But every single day, you should be able to reflect back and say, you know what? I learned 2 or 3 things today that make me better than what I was yesterday. Outwork and over deliver. Show up early, leave late, sweat the details, be fastidious always, always. Enhance your brand. And excellence always, from my mentor, Tom Peters. What else? Mediocrity is simply unacceptable. Do you want to be known as the person that if we need something if we need something done, hand it off to Jim or Jane because they will do a great mediocre job on that for us? We want to be known as, if you need something done, go to Jim or Jane because they will deliver a wow result. That's what you want people thinking. Quick multiple choice question for you. What percentage of leaders do you think that they are really, really excellent at communicating to others? It's one of these. If you guessed 90%, you're right. The actual number is 92. We rounded it down. 92% of leaders believe they are excellent at communicating to those they lead. So we asked the same question to individual contributors and throughout the rest of the organization. We asked, how well do you believe your leaders communicate within this organization? And again, here's the choices. You can go ahead and pick one. But the leaders communicating to this group of people, those people believe their leaders communicate effectively 20% of the time. So there's this huge variance, and actually it's 18, we rounded that one up. There's this huge difference between how well a leader believes they're communicating and how well their people believe they're actually communicating. You know, we mentioned last time that 90% of the time, 92% of the time, those that we lead are not crystal clear on exactly what we want them to help us achieve. Consider this question. How would you like to be held accountable to deliver a result that you didn't know existed or that was kind of vague or cloudy in your mind? It's very uncomfortable. How can we possibly hold people accountable to help us deliver a result when it's not pristinely clear in their mind? And remember, the one major saboteur of execution, change, and peak performance within organizations, we introduced the whirlwind the last time we were together. So you have the whirlwind on the left-hand side, and you have the results, the new goals, the 2 or 3 things that we know if we achieve will propel us into the future in a better place. And there's this rubber conflict between the two. They don't like each other. The whirlwind's urgent, it acts on you. It's putting out the fires, it's crisis management. The results are really, really critically important, and you have to act on them. You know, it's like old Stephen Covey used to say, and I had the chance to work with Stephen for 7 years, that too often folks are working on urgencies and not on the things that are most important in their lives. And that's the quadrant 2 things that he speaks of in the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And we posed this question last time. If you had nothing new to do the rest of this year, would you still be busy? Most of us would answer yes. So the trick is, how do we effectively and flawlessly execute a new strategy to achieve a result in the midst of a 100-mile-an-hour whirlwind? So I want to share a little bit more on this because that's all we introduced last time we were together. But on the left-hand side, again, you have the whirlwind, the day job. It's all the things you have to do in order to keep the operation humming. On the right, we have the results, the new stuff that we need to go after that we know will help us avoid complacency and achieve what matters most. That's where you want to narrow the focus. You can't narrow the focus in the whirlwind. You got to keep everything humming. Narrow the focus on the new results that we know will get us to a better place. So when you look at the 2 areas on this slide at the top, you have the number of results in addition to the whirlwind that we want to go after and achieve. On the bottom, we have goals or results achieved with excellence. So if we have 2 or 3 new results that we must achieve, we're pretty well set up to achieve those 2 or 3. What happens, gang, if we bump that number to 4 or 10? What typically happens? How many do we achieve with excellence? Most often, that's the answer we get. It actually goes backward. You know, we might get 1 or 2. And God forbid, if we bump that number up to 11 or 20, then what happens? You don't achieve any of them. You're diffusing your focus so much that everything becomes a blur within your organization. Everything's the whirlwind, and people just don't know where to spend their time. The key is this: those 11 to 20 ideas, those results, are those good or bad ideas? Most of them are good. So it's not that we don't want to go after those. It's just that we only want to focus on 2 or 3 at a time. So we need to prioritize those. And as we knock one out and execute it flawlessly, we replace it with one of those 11 to 20. You know, so we're not saying those 11, 20 are bad ideas, but we need to really narrow and have laser-like focus on 2 or 3. And that's the critical challenge for many leaders. It's which of the 11 to 20 are the most important, and they don't come to you in some neat stack at the beginning of the year and they're prioritized. They're coming at you all the time. So sometimes you need, in the midst of going after one, something more important may come up, and that's what you need to focus on. So it's a challenge for leaders, and it's not an easy one. Remember this, there will always be more good ideas than there is capacity to execute. There's always going to be ideas coming in. You just simply won't have the capacity to execute all of them flawlessly. The focus traps are these: saying yes to all the good ideas. When you do that, everything becomes a blur and it all becomes the whirlwind. And turning everything in the whirlwind into a result. And what I mean by that is on the left-hand side of the screen, those little dials that are there represent all the new ideas. If you try to turn every one of those in to a wildly important goal on the right or a new result, again, you're diffusing your focus and you're just creating a big blur. And if everything's a priority, nothing's a priority. So what you have on the left is the whirlwind. It's sustaining the operation. You have your balanced scorecards and you have things you're looking at and you're measuring things all the time. You need to keep focus on those. And if something gets out of whack, we need to address it. But on the right, those are the things that will have significant impact on your department or on your team or in your organization. And those are the 2 or 3 that we spend our time and focus on. 80% of your focus, 85% of your focus should be over there on sustaining the whirlwind. You have to do that. It keeps the operation humming. The rest of the time and devotion and energy and passion, innovation, drive, ambition, all of that then goes toward the 2 or 3 new results that will move us into the future. The question you want to ask is that if everything else holds in the whirlwind, what are the 2 or 3 things that if we do in addition will just thrust us into a much better place in the future? So how do we win? Well, it's from moving from a bunch of we ought to kind of do these things to, okay, here are the 2 or 3 things that we will do. This is where we're putting all of our energy and focus. When we don't have that clarity, when we're cloudy or vague, there are some negative repercussions. When we don't have clarity, it will always lead to degrees of confusion. When folks are confused, they will misunderstand. And when we misunderstand, it's very natural that following misunderstanding comes miscommunication, even if it's just a little bit. When we miscommunicate, we will create levels of mistrust and distrust within our organizations. And that's when people revert to what we call isolation. And that's the mindset of, I am just going to do my job. What's on my job description? I'm kind of checking out. I'm not going to tap into my discretionary performance area because I don't understand. They're miscommunicating. They're not aligned. I'm not even sure they know what they're doing. It seems all of that sort of thing. So some of the root causes of this whole ongoing vicious cycle is when leadership isn't making decisions quickly, when we have unresolved conflicts, when something has come up and there's never been a loop closed, when silos exist, when we operate in silos and everybody has different goals or different results that we're going after, and we're not a team that's collaborating to achieve what truly matters most to everybody. When we take too long to make choices, and when we're not specific on the metrics, and we talked a little bit about the metrics last time, and that kind of goes hand in hand with not defining the win. So for example, if you believe that in addition to the whirlwind, the one thing that will propel your team and your organization forward is customer experience. We've got to improve customer experience. Well, we need to know, how are you measuring that? What's the metric today? Where do you stand? And what do you have to get to? And by when? It's the X to Y by when. That's the win. Where it says not defining the win, we need to make certain that for the 2 or 3 new results we're going after, all of them have a metric, where we stand today, where we need to get to, and by when. If we don't equip people with that, they don't know what they can do, or they can't make a conscious decision daily about what they can do to help us. You may have some folks thinking that you're doing quite well, and maybe you're not. But if we don't know where we stand and where we're going, people can't make a conscious decision daily about what they can do to help you achieve the result. When everything's a priority, nothing's a priority. When we have mixed messaging, that can destroy the entire focus, and it will blow away and sabotage any flawless execution that you're looking to accomplish. And finally, lack of alignment. Those are just a few. There's probably 100, but those are the big ones. The highest standard for a leader to aspire, we talked about last time, is, do your people believe they're playing a winnable game? Are they coming to work every day feeling like, wow, I am doing something meaningful something special, something important. It's helping me, it's helping my team, it's helping the company, it's helping the world, it's helping my family? Or are they coming to work every day feeling like they're just trying to keep their head above water? When it comes to the results that we need our teams to help us achieve, remember, any new goal shouldn't be easy. It should cause you to have a little bit of ambivalence and maybe even a little bit of stress. Michelangelo said this a while back, and I've preached this to my children for years. But our fear should not be that we set our goals too high and fail to achieve them, rather that we set them too low and we did. Don't be intimidated or afraid to look for something that's just a little bit further than you think you can actually reach for. So every result of the 2 or 3, they need to be meaningful. Naturally, it needs to be important. You know, it will get you to a better place. Measurable, we just talked about that, and memorable. So it's not 20 or 30 things, it's the 2 or 3. So everybody in your organization, if you have 2,000 people and I walked in and I said, hey, what are the 2 or 3 things you need to accomplish? Every single person can come up to me and say, well, we need to do these 3 things. Here's where we stand with the metrics on each one today. Here's the metric we need to achieve. And here's when we need to achieve each one of them. When you can get everybody on your team to understand what's most important, the power of that is dramatic, has significant impact. Accountability, engagement, flawless execution, esprit de corps, ownership, innovation, collaboration, everything that we have listed there begins with clearly defining the results you need your team to achieve. And it's about going into what we said as the kryptonite to the 7-sided pincer movement. Ideas, speed, talent, accessing the talent that exists at every level of your organization and developing that talent, becoming very distinctive, what makes you different, what's your reason to believe, what would draw somebody to you as an individual, to a team, or as an organization, what makes you different. And also leadership capacity at every level. How do we develop it and draw it out of everybody within the organization? So there are limitations of just doing the job. The R's up on the screen represent your role or your responsibility, or your team's role or responsibility. Think about this. In an organization where we operate just like this, where we all focus on just our role or our responsibility, do things ever fall through the cracks? Of course they do. So I might ask, well, why is that? And it's because cracks exist. It's how we're operating. So when things are falling through the cracks, what do many organizations tend to do? We need more what? More people, crack fillers. So even when we put more people in play, do things still fall through the cracks? Yes, they do. In fact, what do we create? We now create more cracks, and they're smaller and more difficult to see. What we're suggesting you do with the whole notion of what we're talking about, with identifying the top 2 or 3 additional results that you have to achieve, is that those shaded areas up there become the accountability and ownership for everybody in the organization. It's everybody's job to help you achieve those. So those are the results you're not achieving now, but you would achieve when people go above and beyond their quote unquote job description. And it's everybody's job. So that's where you place your top 2 or 3 desired results. Result 1, result 2, and result 3. And they need to be meaningful, measurable, and memorable. So we introduced the results model last time we were together. Quick review: every result you achieve personally or professionally is a byproduct of the actions we choose to take. The actions we take are driven by the beliefs that we all hold, and the beliefs we hold are developed from our experiences that we've all had over time, our personal and professional experiences. And if we're focused only at that action layer, enforcing compliance around policies and procedures and telling people what to do and when to do it and how to do it, that's a big red neon blinking light. And it's saying you have some beliefs in your organization that are holding you back. We need to connect to the head and the heart. And that's down here at the bottom of that model. The reason this plane is under the action layer is because most people, managers, supervisors, leaders, most people operate with a model that's just 2 layers deep. The problem with that is it's time consuming, it's energy draining, and you end up spinning your wheels, because when you're not enforcing compliance and telling people what to do, they will always revert back to their beliefs, and that's what they'll take action on. The most important lesson that we talked about when we were together last, well, actually, before we go there, let me just share this, and this is kind of reinforcing what we talked about last time. The way your folks think, which is down here, experiences and beliefs, and the way they act right here at the second layer, that's your culture. It's your team of 5's culture, your department of 30, or your organization of 3,000. The way your 3,000 people cumulatively think and act is producing your results, your financials, your operational results, your customer results, and your employee results. But if you'll recall, the most important thing, especially as a leader, but also if you're looking to strengthen and bolster your personal brand, everything you do, every action you take is an experience for everybody watching you. And the key thing to really truly understand and internalize is this: are the actions you're taking reinforcing what people already think about you or your team or your organization? Or are you creating new beliefs? And when you're aware of this, you start to make certain that you're creating experiences that develop and foster beliefs that will help you achieve the results that are most important to you. It's just self-awareness. It's being very cognizant of the actions you're taking and what those actions might cause others to believe, whether people within your organization or external. So is the belief impeding or accelerating our ability to achieve the results? Just keep that in mind. Also, every belief that exists about you or your team or your department did not just pop up out of the ether. It's a result of 3 primary things. They either had a direct experience with you, interaction, conversation, or they may have observed you interacting with somebody else or a client, or there are stories being told about you or your department or your team or your organization. Stories are third-party experiences that develop beliefs that drive actions that produce results. So just understand, by the way, just internalize this as well. This belief section right here on this model, when people give you feedback, feedback is just somebody's belief. You should never get combative or argue or become defensive when people give you feedback, because who made them believe what they believe? You did, indirectly or directly. Makes no sense at all to respond to feedback by saying, well, you shouldn't think that, or I didn't intend for you to think that. Well, they do think it. And the only way they won't think it is if you determine to create a new experience for them to shift the belief. So let's put this results model in action. Let's bring it to life. So my younger son, Nick, when he was about 10 years old, was viciously attacked by a wild dog when we were on vacation in Mexico. To this day, 10 years later, Nick's petrified of dogs. 6'3", 100 or 230 pounds, could probably eat a dog, but he can see a dog 200 yards away and he gets a little bit antsy. And we've tried a lot of good experiences with Nick around dogs. We tried stuffed animals, neighbors' dogs, relatives' dogs, but he wants nothing to do with dogs. A couple of years ago, Nick and I were out body surfing in the water, and I noticed this gentleman strolling down the beach, tossing a tennis ball to a dog that's no bigger than a loaf of bread, like that dog on the screen there. And I'm thinking to myself, what's Nick going to do when he sees this dog? No sooner do I think that he turns around, he sees the dog, starts hyperventilating, goes into a panic attack, and nearly drowned me, because his belief about dogs is that they're evil creatures. And that may never change. Now, the same son, when he was about 6 years old, we take him to his pediatrician. She's a female pediatrician. My wife and I are both in the examination room. He's sitting up on the examination table. She walks into the room and he says, "Dad, ladies can't be doctors." I was like, he didn't get that from me. I said, "Nick, women can do anything they want." And his response was, "Oh, okay." So his belief about women not being able to be doctors changed instantaneously on better information. And the only reason I tell you those 2 stories is because all of us, individually or your team or your department, there are people that have beliefs about us. Some of the beliefs are helping you, and that's great. But some of the beliefs you may not want people to hold about you. And the only way we can get people to shift their beliefs is to create a new experience. We need to get down to the bottom of the model here, into the head and the heart. To shift a belief, you may need to create 1, 2, 3, 4, or multiple new experiences in order for people to shift their beliefs. A couple quick questions for you to consider. How about this one? What are the beliefs that people in your organization currently hold that are impeding you from achieving your desired results? A follow-up would be, what do those beliefs need to be in order for you to achieve or exceed those desired results? And you can see where this is going, that what are the experiences you and your team need to create to foster those beliefs in order to achieve the results that matter most? And finally, this one. Are there some in your organization who might believe that one or more of your desired results are unattainable? And if that is the case, what's your plan to shift the beliefs? So let's just look at the model at the 4 layers and just talk about a few components and key principles at each layer. Are the results clearly defined? How many of your people could state them exactly? Know the metrics, where you stand today, and what you must achieve. At the second layer, the action layer, how many people can make a link between what they do and the desired results that you have to achieve? Can they see how they contribute? How do we increase that number? What do you need to see stop happening? What do you need to see start happening? And at the belief layer, what beliefs exist broadly that are perhaps barriers to achieving those desired results? And what beliefs are accelerators? And then what will you do to ensure that you see the accelerators occurring more and more often? And at the experience layer, what are the experiences that we're creating deliberately or subconsciously that are either reinforcing or perhaps not reinforcing the beliefs that advance and impede you? So we need to make sure that we're very aware at all 4 layers. Maya said it great. I've learned that people will forget what you said, forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. Now, there's people that I don't have a great feeling toward right now, but I don't remember what the specific event was or the experience, but I know it was something and I didn't like it and it just stuck with me. When it comes to brand you, remember these 3 things, these 3 questions. You have complete and total control over how you show up every day. How do people see you every day? How do you behave? What are the experiences you're creating? What are the actions you're choosing to take? And what do you accept from others? What experiences do you accept from others? What actions do you accept from others? People work harder and more effectively for people we like, and we like them in direct proportion to how they make us feel. Think about that with your most recent manager, boss, leader, supervisor. So we introduced the keys to peak performance when we were last together: recognizing our realities, accepting ownership, creating a solution, and exercising action. Those are the 4 keys to peak performance. And within those 4 keys up at the top, there are 5 best practices for each. And we'll talk about those in a moment. Below the water, we introduced the 7 categories into which all blame falls into one of them. And it's the mindset that it's not my fault, there's nothing I can do about it. It's kind of just giving up. And the key was, somebody could cause you to be in a really tough situation, but even if you were caused to be there by somebody else or something or some event, you will never achieve anything worthwhile unless you pull yourself up by the bootstraps and get above the water and take accountability and implement the best practices. So when we're above the water, when we're taking the keys and implementing the best practices, that's where you have that mindset of, what else can I do to get to where I want to be? Think about it, any athlete or Olympic athletes, they never let anything stop them. They're always considering, what else can I do? I would imagine most of us know somebody in our personal lives that seems to always achieve and exceed what's important to them. That's their mindset. It's very easy to be sucked below the water and play the blame game. That's why people go there. It's easy. So when we go down there below the water and exhibit any of these 7 blame game fundamentals or principles, what that leads to often in many, many organizations is a lot of negative emotions, guilt, resentment, and even mistrust and distrust. And those aren't going to help any culture move forward to achieve what matters most. As your brand, you have 100% control over how you are role modeling, how you build capability in others, and how you energize. You don't need to have authority or permission to do any of that. It's about playing the blame game or taking accountability. This is one person who, if anybody, had the excuse to play the blame game, yet this was their mindset. Self-pity is our own worst enemy, and if we yield to it, we will never accomplish anything worthwhile. One of my favorite quotes of all time, and it comes from Helen Keller. Your job as a leader, no matter what level you're at, individual contributor, whatever level you're at, you can be a leader. Your job as a leader is to keep your team, your department, your organization above the water, engaged more often than you allow folks to drop below the water playing the blame game. So we have these 4 key best practices: recognize realities, accept ownership, create solutions, and exercise action. And within each key best practice, there are 5 best practices underneath those for a total of 20 best practices. And when you look at that list, there's nothing on there that's rocket science or brain surgery. It's all common sense stuff. The problem with common sense, as Mark Twain said, it's just not that common. When you look at these 20 best practices, it's about doing these things frequently. How often do you see this stuff happen within your team, your department, or your organization? When these things happen more frequently, the likelihood that you'll achieve and exceed your desired results skyrockets. So when organizations embrace all of the practices that we've discussed, we move from externalizing change to internalizing the need for change, from blaming others and other people or other events to taking personal accountability to help us achieve what matters most, from just doing my job to, hey, I'm on the team, I need to help us achieve the result and I'll do whatever it takes. From working in silos to true collaboration, sharing best practices, sharing resources, sharing ideas, whatever it takes, because we're in this together. That's the reason we're on the team. And from telling people what to do to truly engaging their head and heart and getting them to self-select the right actions that will help us achieve what matters most. Again, our defense to that 7-sided pincer movement, it's about ideas, an abundance of ideas, fast prototyping, putting them into play quickly, tapping into the enormous amount of talent within every organization, diversity of thought, and at the same time, developing that talent over time, becoming distinctive in every way we can in the sea of sameness, and also making sure we're building and drawing out the leadership capacity that resides in every single one of us. Leadership is a choice, gang. What happens next is completely up to you. Hopefully you can grab onto 1 or 2 of these ideas, one that makes sense for you and can help you quickly. Put it into play. You don't have to do all of this at once. Try 1 or 2 things over time. And as you develop some wins, think back to some of the other ideas we discussed and presented and start putting them into action. So again, leadership's a choice. What you do next, there are no police out there that are going to make you do any of it. Powerless is a state of mind. If you think you are or you think you are not, you're absolutely right. Thanks so much for having had the opportunity to present to you last week and with this additional deeper dive into some of these concepts. I wish you all the best. If I can support you in any way, my contact information is right there. Feel free to reach out. I'd be more than pleased to help you and support your efforts. Thanks again. Live and lead accountably.